I'm Nana van Tilburg for BizNews.com, and with me is Mishal Patel from Sable International, who is going to tell us about new routes open to South Africans who want to move to the UK. Hi, Mishal. So, the UK Home Office closed the Tier 1 investor visa in February this year. What other options are there now for South Africans?
So with UK immigration and nationality, two separate things. There are some changes in nationality which we can go into later, but in terms of immigration routes, absolutely. So the investor, which was a £2 million option at that point, has been dropped. Instead, there has not been anything to replace it. So we don't currently have a cash investment where you don't have to work or raise a business. So there's nothing that's replaced that category, unfortunately. So it's just a waiting game to see whether they're going to reintroduce it at some point. In other categories, in terms of business related categories, we've got the innovator visa, which is something that, as a company that we're trying to take to other parts, and especially in South Africa, where we have another office. And innovator visa, as the name suggests, it's to do with bringing a new idea into the UK, having that seed capital minimum of sort of £50,000 and getting the idea and the business plan endorsed by a third party that's been approved by the UK government or the Home Office. Now, what that allows is the person relocating not just to raise that business, but then they get 3 years worth of UK residency. At the end of the 3 years UK residency, they get a shot at permanent residency, which is what we call indefinite leave to remain.
With regard to the innovator visa, does the South African have to be an entrepreneur or do you invest in a UK startup?
So you could do either one of those things. So I've got currently a sort of example that I can share, which is we've got someone in South Africa that's background is in engineering, and they've found a niche market in which they are the only one of two people in the world that engineer certain parts that form part of a factory setting, and you got to form the part and install it and also train someone on how to use that part in that factory setting. Only two companies apparently that he knows that does that. They want to bring that over to the UK as a business. Now, that's never been heard of here. Although those factories do exist in Europe, they have to then get someone to fly them over. Whereas if they were based in the UK, it would be easier for that chap to go ahead and train those company owners or factory owners rather. So that's something that's new. It's not a UK startup. He's a founder of that business. He's going to invest that 50,000 to whatever it is, 200, and he's going to come and form that limited business here. So that's one example. Then you've got someone in South Africa or wherever else that's got the capital, but doesn't really know what they want to get into. They have done a few things in their life, entrepreneurial in every sense, but they don't actually know what they want to get into. So they can approach us and they can say, well, look, we don't know, but we've got the cash. We want to move to the UK and we do think we can contribute to the society there and also the business. Here's what we are interested in. Now, what we do here at Sable is we partner up with another firm here based in London, and they have a library of UK startups looking for foreign investment. So they do the matching. We get the visa for the person that's being matched up in terms of the innovator visa.
Can you share who this company is?
No, I can't at the moment, just because the partnership is still in the works. But yeah, but it soon will be announced on our website.
You mentioned £50,000. What are the other costs?
So the other costs would be, so you got the government fee side of things, so that those can run up depending on how many applicants you have. Because the good thing about the innovator visa there is that you can bring family members along. So you can bring your spouse, any children under 18 as dependents. Every time you add a dependent to that visa category, the fee kind of goes up incrementally in terms of the government fee. So for a main applicant, it could be just over a thousand and something pounds, I think it is. But then every time you add a dependent on it, you got to pay an extra amount. And not only that, you also got the immigration health surcharge. So this allows, the prepayment for the NHS. So that can run up to about £624 per year, and you got to pay that 3 years worth of that per person in advance. So they can all add up. So a family of four can expect just the government fees themselves, not representation fees, just government fees themselves can expect a bill of in and around just shy of £10,000. I'm afraid. So it is pricey.
It's less than the 2 million before. So
It is less than the 2 million before. You see, the other parts that just quickly getting into before the next question is that although it's a 3-year route, and a lot of people may see that as a shortcut, it is tough in my opinion because not only do you have to get the endorsement to see whether your business plan is scalable, viable, and genuine, but also they will have certain checkpoints where they'll check on you, or your endorsing body will check on you at the 6 month, 12-month, and 24-month mark to see whether you're still meeting the characteristics of that category, which is the innovator visa, which again is it scaling up? Is it still viable? Are you still producing these results and so on? They've learned, I believe, from what was the entrepreneur visa, which was a £200,000 investment. And I know a lot of my friends, some from Kenya, ended up being pharmacists in their life, but then I bought subways um, to get them into the UK. So I think they've kind of learned, and they've gone, okay, we can't police it, but we can get an endorsing body to police it.
So they made it a bit harder, but the money that you have to invest is less.
Correct.
Why would a South African make a good investment partner?
Great question, Alinda, because having been to South Africa now a few times, and I have an upcoming trip going there for another roadshow towards the end of October, met close to a few hundred people every day on a one-to-one basis. One thing I did notice is just like East Africans, especially my background, which is the more East African Indian background, South Africans are very entrepreneurial. I think everyone in every 5 person I met basically owned a business and practically raised it from the ground up, be it a small business or a large scale business. And the other third of people there were sort of high network individuals who run companies and, co-founders and then branched off something else. So I believe it's actually within something within the DNA. And the same thing like East Africa, most of them are business owners. And I thought, well, the UK is looking for that type of person and they're looking for the investment. Here's a whole group of people who have been doing this for a long time anyway, be it in just South Africa.
Yeah.
So why would you suggest South Africans consider this visa?
With South Africans, the migration pattern is huge. So that I have noticed. And just because our CEO is South African and we have a Cape Town branch, and just from people in our branch moving into this branch or in the UK, we get one or two every year. But then when you look at the immigration figures and by nationality, just because of we're in charge of some of those entry clearance figures, you see people coming in, and not everyone has a UK-born grandparent, so they can't get the ancestry visa. Not everyone's got a British nationality claim. So you got to then think, what other products are they for these South Africans who are on their way to retirement to come into the UK? And here's one category they could do. You always get other categories, like you got a similar thing called a startup visa, which is just if I don't have a business plan, but I have the capital, I'm not too sure if my idea is going to work, I can use a startup visa, but that doesn't lead to settlement, and you got to switch into the innovator visa category anyway. Then you got the skilled person visa. Again, I've noticed when meeting people in South Africa, all the younger crowd, so your 20 somethings have just come out of university to about 35 young adults. That branch of people, that age group, that demographic are probably the ones that would benefit from a skilled person visa, but that attaches you to one company. And it's difficult to then move within the UK and market yourself.
Well, for somebody that says this is appealing, how long would it take the whole process before a decision is made?
At the moment, guidelines say 6 weeks, but I think that's probably not true in my opinion. I think you're looking at around the 8 to 12 week mark from start to finish. And by that, I mean not us preparing the application, which will probably take in and around similar times, 6 to 12 weeks to prepare it because we have an endorsing body to talk to as well. But in terms of the home office processing times at the moment, I'm sure a lot of our listeners would already know this, which is, I've been waiting, nothing's happened. And they've told me it was only 4 to 6 weeks. There are a lot of it to do with, they're still of the opinion that the Ukrainian crisis has taken a lot of resources and leading to delays. So I would say 12 weeks to be on the more conservative side.
But 12 weeks is not too bad. I know of people who've waited much, much longer for Australian visas.
This is it. And I think why I probably sound a little bit pessimistic about that is just because they're still advertising it as a shorter time frame. And a lot of, You might know this, but a lot of people will go like, well, if the internet says this and the home office, why is it taking so long? And they get anxious. And coming from that background myself, I know how anxiety inducing, sorry, it is waiting for a decision, especially when it's gone over the guidelines.
So, why should applicants use Sable International? They might say, but I can do it on my own.
In my opinion, it's twofold. The main two reasons I think is number one, clarity. Clarity is a big thing. I mean, coming from being part and product of that process myself, it's, is this the right visa for me? Or have I just read something on the internet and it's made it easier? And I've kind of reached my own conclusions. So it's like Googling medical symptoms. It's always going to be a bad idea, So I think clarity is where Sable really champions. And we're good at it because we're not looking to sell you a certain product. We're looking for the best option for you to move to the UK. So that's number one. Number two, once that's figured out, it's responsibility. Who's responsible for the outcome if this goes bad? You're going to do it yourself. It's going to be a lot of money for maybe missing one document, and the Home Office going, no, I don't think so. They don't always give you the opportunity to go back and print it out and then come back into the appointment. You missed the opportunity, you missed it. You didn't upload the right document, you didn't do it. They can be very black and white. So it's about responsibility and taking ownership for when things go wrong and holding someone responsible for that. I think if I was to do this myself now, I'll be scared. I'll be a bit nervous about the amount of money riding on it unless I was a very confident person or had that background. For a layperson, I find those rules very complex. So it's nice to give someone the responsibility. And you also know if things go wrong, they are going to sort it out. I'm not going to look at the mirror and blame myself.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have the contacts because where would you find the startup to invest in if you're
Yeah,
not
look,
starting it?
there is also all of that as well, which is startups having a certain relationship with an endorsing body, of course, helps because endorsing bodies are businesses at the end of the day. And often you have to have a relationship with them for them to even consider, okay, fine, we will preview this and let you know what's wrong so that when you come back, we can then endorse you. So these are key relationships that Sabre has been able to build over the past sort of 6 to 8 months, mainly. And they do often help because then you can have a little preview into what could happen if you were to put that business plan in to get the endorsement.
We've spoken about the new innovator visa. Are there other routes that are open to South Africans that they might not think about or that are new?
I just wanted to touch base on another topic that's affecting a lot of our listeners, which was the enactment of a new section within the law. So the law I specifically talk about is the British nationality law in the UK, and that has changed quite significantly, in my opinion. And these new rules that have been added in is directly leading to claims where they didn't exist before. So these are claims to straight British nationality without the person coming into the UK at all,
Yeah.
just by having a certain type of family tree and ancestry, basically. So one quick example. So this law came into force on the 28th of June, so fairly recent this year. Has been debated through Parliament in the last sort of 1.5 years. And May, the act commenced, then it came into force in June. Now, one of the things it's led to is opening up claims down the matrilineal line, which has never been opened up in this manner, in my opinion, before. By that I mean, if I had a grandmother born in the UK, my mother was, say, born in South Africa in the, I don't know, 50s or 60s, and then I was born in the sort of late 1980s, for that matter. Usually, I would say to such a person, sorry, not direct British nationality claim. Had it been your grandfather who was born in UK, absolutely yes, would you believe? But not because it's your grandmother. And you wouldn't believe, but those are the rules at that point. It is a historic wrong in terms of gender discrimination. But I would say to that person, only ancestry, coming to the UK 5 years, and in the sixth year you can naturalize. But £10,000 in, you might get a British passport. Whereas now, from the 28th of June, someone in that exact circumstance can apply for registration under special circumstances, which is the UK's version of a discretionary provision for adults. So we can now put forward an application to tell the Home Office in the UK that this is why our adult should be given British citizenship at the discretion of them and why. And one of the reasons that they've covered there is gender discrimination, which is, would this client of yours be British had the law been entirely gender equal, going back as far back as you want to go, really. So it takes a little bit of knowing what the historic law or injustice was to then obviously formulate an argument. But I think it's going to open up claims for thousands of people in South Africa, which is why we're going out there to see people at the end of October towards November. I thought I'd share that with you because a lot of your listeners might be interested in learning whether they have a claim now, because in the past they may be probably told no by Sable itself.
That actually might open a big door for South Africans. Thank you, Mishal Patel from Sable International, for speaking to us.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.